January 2026. The headlines are screaming again. Donald Trump is back in the White House and he's doubling down on his craziest idea, buying Greenland. The media loves it. CNN calls it delusional. The European elites are sipping their espresso and mocking the real estate president for trying to buy a frozen rock larger than Mexico. They think it's about ego. They think he wants to slap a gold Trump sign on an iceberg. It's the perfect distraction. Because while everyone is busy laughing at the clown show, they are missing the heist of the century happening right under their noses. Let's cut through the noise. This isn't about real estate. This is about survival. While the pundits crack jokes, take a look at who is actually on the ground in Greenland right now. It's not hotel developers. It's KoBold Metals. It's a company backed by Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and the deepest pockets in Silicon Valley. They are using AI to scan the rock beneath the ice at Disco New Suak. They aren't looking for a view. They are looking for the ingredients of modern warfare. Here is the brutal truth the news won't tell you. The United States military is addicted to Chinese supply chains. It's a strategic suicide pact. You want to build an F-35 fighter jet? You need 920 pounds of rare earth materials. You want a Virginia-class nuclear sub? You need nearly 5 tons. Guidance systems, lasers, radar, EV batteries, they all run on weird metals like neodymium and dysprosium. And right now, China has a chokehold on the processing of these metals. Xi Jinping knows this. That's why China declared itself a near-Arctic state and started sinking claws into Greenland's mining sector years ago. They are building a polar Silk Road. They know that Greenland is the Saudi Arabia of rare earths. If China locks down Greenland, they don't need to fire a missile to defeat the US. They just have to stop shipping the metals. The US war machine would grind to a halt in 6 months. So when Trump says, buy Greenland, he isn't talking about a property deal. He's talking about a hostile takeover of the periodic table. He knows that the ice is melting and revealing a treasure chest that can break China's monopoly. The US is willing to spend billions not for the snow, but to keep Beijing out of the North Atlantic. The disconnect is fatal. The public sees a joke, but the Pentagon sees the front line of World War III. Stop laughing. The war for the rock has already begun. Let's zoom in on a spot map that keeps Pentagon generals awake at night. Kvanefjeld, southern Greenland. This isn't just a snowy mountain, it's the second largest deposit of rare earths and uranium on Earth. And guess who has their fingerprints all over it? A Chinese state-linked giant called Shanghai Resources. Here is the mechanism of the trap. The West thinks mining is about digging holes. China knows mining is about chemistry. You see, digging up rare earths is easy. Separating them is a nightmare. It's toxic, expensive, and scientifically brutal. China spent 30 years building a monopoly on the processing technology. Right now, even if the US mined every rock in Greenland, they'd arguably have to ship it to China just to make it usable. It's like owning a Ferrari, but having to ask your enemy for the keys every time you want to drive. The US is trying to panic build refineries in Texas, but they are decades behind. Greenland is the only cheat code left. The ore there is so rich it could jumpstart the entire Western supply chain overnight. But China knows this too. That's why they are embedded in the ownership structure. That's why they are stalling projects with legal battles. This mechanism is a ticking time bomb. In 2025, China restricted gallium exports just to show they could. That was a demo. The real show begins when they cut off the heavy rare earths needed for EV motors and fighter jets. Trump buying Greenland is the only way to physically seize the raw materials and break the processing chokehold. It's not a purchase, it's a jailbreak for the US economy. Rare earths are scary, but if you want to know what really terrifies the war planners, look at silver. Not the jewelry on your finger, but the metal inside every single Tomahawk missile, torpedo, and military satellite in the US arsenal. Silver is the most conductive metal in the universe. You can't fight a high-tech war without it. And guess what? We are running out. Welcome to the panic of 2026. For 5 straight years, the world has burned through more silver than we can dig up. We are in a 250 million ounce deficit. The vaults in London and New York are draining faster than a bathtub with the plug pulled. This is where Greenland's Kvanefjeld comes in, a massive untouched vault of zinc and silver buried under the ice. The financial markets are lying to you. They show you a paper price for silver that is suppressed by derivatives, but the physical market is screaming. The US military consumes massive amounts of silver, and they don't recycle it. It explodes. It's gone. Trump isn't just looking at a map, he's looking at a balance sheet. He sees that in a war economy, silver becomes unobtainium. Buying Greenland secures the physical asset before the silver squeeze breaks the global market. If you think the rush for toilet paper was bad in 2020, wait until Lockheed Martin and Tesla start fighting over the last bar of silver. Greenland is the emergency stash. Let's strip away the diplomatic niceties and look at this deal the way a shark on Wall Street would. When Denmark said Greenland is not for sale, the media heard a rejection. Donald Trump heard a starting position. In the world of mergers and acquisitions, everything has a price tag, even sovereignty. And when you run the numbers on what Greenland is actually worth to the American empire, you realize that the politicians in Copenhagen are holding a winning lottery ticket, and Trump is the only one offering to cash it out. Let's do the valuation. Back in 1946, President Truman offered $100 million in gold for Greenland. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $1.4 billion today. That's chump change. You can't even buy an NBA team for that kind of money anymore, let alone the world's largest island. But we aren't living in 1946. We are living in 2026, in the middle of a resource war where physical assets are king. The value of Greenland isn't in the ice, it's in the opportunity cost. What is the cost to the United States if they don't control Greenland? Think about it. If China secures the Kvanefjeld project and chokes off the supply of heavy rare earths, the US economy takes a hit that would make the Great Depression look like a picnic. We are talking about the collapse of the entire EV supply chain, the grounding of the aerospace industry, and the paralysis of Silicon Valley. The Nasdaq is built on chips, and chips are built on the periodic table. Without those elements, Apple, Nvidia, and Tesla are just selling expensive paperweights. So, what is the insurance premium to prevent that catastrophe? Is it $50 billion? $100 billion? Even at $500 billion, buying Greenland is the trade of the century. The US spends nearly $1 trillion a year on defense. Spending 5% or 10% of that budget to secure the raw materials that actually make the weapons work is the most logical investment the Pentagon could ever make. It's not spending, it's hedging. It's an insurance policy against the extinction of American industrial power. Critics say you can't buy countries anymore. History says otherwise. America bought Louisiana from the French. We bought Alaska from the Russians for pennies an acre. Best ROI in history. We literally bought the Virgin Islands from Denmark in 1917. The precedent is there. Denmark's GDP is around $400 billion. If the US put a check for $50 billion on the table, liquid cash, plus a promise to cover Greenland's annual budget deficit forever, do you really think the Danish taxpayers would say no? Money talks, and in a recession it screams. But Trump is smarter than just a cash buyout. He's likely looking at the Hong Kong model, a 99-year lease, a strategic resource zone. Denmark gets to keep their flag flying and their pride intact, but the US gets the keys to the basement. We get the zinc at Kvanefjeld, we get the uranium, we get the rare earths, and most importantly, we kick China out of the Arctic Club. It's a hostile takeover disguised as a diplomatic partnership. For you, the investor, this valuation is the alpha. The market currently treats silver, zinc, and rare earths like boring commodities. They trade based on supply and demand charts from yesterday, but the US government is pricing them based on survival tomorrow. There is a massive disconnect here. When a superpower is willing to redraw the map to secure a metal, that metal is no longer a commodity. It is a strategic asset. The repricing is going to be violent. We are looking at a scenario where the paper price of silver and rare earths is completely detached from reality. The moment the first US boot hits the ground in a Greenland security zone, the physical price of these assets will moonshot. Trump isn't trying to buy a frozen wasteland, he's trying to corner the market on the future. He's making a distressed asset play on a global scale, and while Europe laughs, he's calculating the exit multiple. This is the valuation of a war economy, and in a war economy, the guy with the most metal wins. Stop looking at the stock charts for a second and look at the globe from the top down. What do you see? You see the ice melting. And for military strategists in Beijing and Washington, melting ice doesn't mean climate change. It means a new Suez Canal. The Northern Sea Route is opening up, cutting shipping times from Asia to Europe by 40%. And Greenland sits right at the toll booth. China has a master plan called the Polar Silk Road. They want you to think it's about shipping cheap toasters to Europe faster. It's not. It's about military encirclement. China calls itself a near-Arctic state. That's a joke. They are 3,000 kilometers away, but they act like they own the place. Why? Because they are playing the long game of infrastructure. Here is the story the mainstream media buried. In 2018, Greenland needed new airports. They were broke. Who stepped in with a bag full of cash to build them? A massive Chinese state-owned company. The ink was almost dry. The Pentagon freaked out. The US Secretary of Defense had to fly to Denmark and practically force them to kill the deal. Why? Because an airport built by China is never just an airport. In the world of modern warfare, infrastructure is the weapon. A Chinese-built port in Greenland means Chinese naval vessels docking in the North Atlantic. A Chinese-built airport means listening posts, radar, and potential runways for bombers right on America's doorstep. It breaks the US defensive perimeter. Imagine Chinese radar in Greenland staring down at New York and Washington, D.C. It renders the entire US missile defense system in Alaska useless because the threat would be coming from the east, not the west. This is the reality Trump sees. He sees China buying up ports in Africa, Sri Lanka, and Greece. He knows Greenland is next. Buying Greenland is the only way to slam the door shut. It's about denying the enemy a beachhead. The US views the Arctic as its backyard, but China is trying to set up a tent. Trump isn't acting crazy. He's acting like a geopolitical landlord evicting a squatter who happens to be building a missile silo in the garden. This is the Polar Silk Road meeting the American Wall. How does this movie end? It doesn't end with a handshake. It ends with an ultimatum. The United States is currently dusting off a 200-year-old policy called the Monroe Doctrine. It basically says, this is our hemisphere, stay out. For 2 centuries, it applied to Europe. Now, Trump is aiming it directly at China. The exit strategy isn't about leaving Greenland, it's about kicking China out of the Arctic. Washington is realizing that free market rules don't work when your opponent is a state-controlled monopoly. So, the US is about to flip the table. We are moving from a world of globalization to a world of bloc economy. The US will likely present Denmark with a choice that isn't really a choice. Become a vassal of the US economy and ban all Chinese investment, or watch as the US acts unilaterally to secure the perimeter. Think of the Panama precedent. The US didn't ask nicely for the canal zone. They took it because they needed it. Greenland is the Panama Canal of the 21st century. The US cannot allow a Chinese Cuba to form in the North Atlantic. If that means putting boots on the ground to secure the mines at Kvanefjeld, history suggests the US will do it. Sovereignty is a nice concept for peacetime. In a resource war, geography is destiny. For the investor, this is the exit from the era of cheap commodities. When the US government invokes the Defense Production Act to secure Greenland's mines, those assets exit the public market. They become strategic reserves. You won't be able to buy shares in them. The silver coming out of Citroën and Fjord won't go to making Samsung phones. It will go to making Raytheon missiles. The supply squeeze will be biblical. Here is the bottom line. The party is over. The era of just-in-time delivery and global supply chains died the moment the ice started melting. We are entering the lockdown. Not a virus lockdown, but a resource lockdown. Nations are building walls around their critical minerals. Donald Trump's obsession with Greenland is the canary in the coal mine. It signals that the US empire is terrified of running out of ammo, literally and figuratively. If they secure Greenland, they lock down the Western Hemisphere's supply of the future. If they fail, they lose the 21st century. For you, watching this screen, the message is simple. You cannot print silver. You cannot print rare earths. You can only own them. When the clash comes, paper contracts will burn, but the metal will remain. The resource war isn't coming. It's here. And the battlefield is a frozen island you thought was a joke. Stop laughing. Start stacking. Stop listening to the lies. Subscribe for the reality. Game over.